OCN, Open Door Communication Network. Our frequency. Watch us on live stream 24 hours. OCN, giving the voice of the Lord.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeraleen Peterson, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I'd like to welcome you to the OCN channel, and this program is called Living in Wisdom. Wisdom is very important, and in the Bible, it is one of the virtues that we receive a promise with it. And the promise is that if we ask God for wisdom, He will give it to us. Now, of course, we have to ask for wisdom for the right reasons. However, this evening we're going to be looking at asking for wisdom when you're facing despair and hopelessness. And so we're looking at hope versus despair. And how do I live with hope when I'm experiencing some of the worst, oh boy, fear and uncertainty in my life? Well, the word hope, let's define it. The definition of hope is a joyful expectation of good. Hope keeps us from worrying, allows us to leave our unanswered questions in God's hands. It empowers us to stay at peace and enables us to believe the best about the days to come. People with hope are happy, optimistic, and full of strength and courage. That's a quote by Joyce Myers. Over the past year, I found myself having to address some serious thoughts and questions, oh boy, about how to live in wisdom and maintain my hope in God, myself, and other people. Like many of you, I'm experiencing the whole atmosphere of turmoil. And we understand that perilous times will come. That's what Jesus told us. However, it is very difficult to watch humanity start to fall apart and see people losing faith in basic truth. And like many of you, I find myself struggling not to lose hope. Over the past 4 years, I've had some ongoing and unrelenting experiences that have tried to kill my hope. And so I find myself focusing on sometimes the negative things that are happening to me more than believing the promises of God or allowing myself to expect good things to happen in my life. Well, I'm at the age of retirement. And one of the things that happened to me in the past year was that my pension was wrongfully invested by a financial counselor that I trusted. This was devastating. And it means that I will need to work until I'm over age 70. Then I witnessed the devastation that my grandchildren are going through as a result of two of my sons having divorces. The custody issues with the children were very mean and bitter, nasty, and as the grandparent, I just kind of got pushed to the side without consideration for my relationship with my grandchildren. I know others may have experienced worse or greater challenges. However, through these experiences, although I love God, I found myself and my faith being tested constantly. Proverbs 3:12 says that hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a dream fulfilled is a tree of life. Wisdom is a tree of life to those who embrace her, and happy are those who hold her tightly. That's Proverbs 3:18. Wisdom comes from time-proven truths. And in this age of technology, that's not always easy to know. What is truth? Is it what we Google online, or different pundits who report to us in news programs? How do we know what truth is? Well, those of us who are believers know that Jesus established himself as the truth, the way, and the life. But sometimes we forget because we have so many challenges in our lives. How are we going to take care of ourselves? Will we have adequate health insurance? Will the relationships that we've invested in for many years continue to be profitable and fruitful for us? And so even though we may know the Word of God, sometimes we can be distracted. And that's where I found myself at. Now, I'm a licensed clinical counselor. And my job is to encourage, counsel, and help people as they go through their life struggles. And so I felt very uneasy. How can I do my job adequately if I'm facing the challenges of depression, despair, and loss of hope? I have to believe that these challenges were given to me as a gift so that, one, I could better identify with the people that I quote unquote help, and also to help me realize just how painful and devastating life problems can be. But I took a look around me, and I watched, like many of you did, with sadness, the election process of 2016, which I see as a manifestation of a nation's loss of hope in our political system and in our government leaders. And that overall environment affects everyone. We try to escape it, but it's there. And when you layer that on top of our personal issues and concerns, it can be so overwhelming. So I had to ask myself, how do I find hope when challenged? By feeling overwhelmed and inundated with constant change. And before I can assess one change, there's another. There used to be a time when Windows got changed like every 7 years. Now with the iPhone, we get updates and changes every 9 months. And as soon as you think you've, learned or able to manage one of the applications, There are 10 more that keep coming at you. So subsequently, you feel anxious and unsettled, and as though you're even being attacked. Attacked intellectually, emotionally, and if you have health problems, you feel like your body, your physical health is being attacked. And then you look at relationships that are crumbling around you. Our communities change very quickly. Your neighbors may not look like you, and you may not be able to speak the same language they speak. All of these things cause us to have levels of anxiety, but none of them should cause us to lose hope in God. Is it the increased use and reliance on technology, or the decrease in effective verbal communication? Is it the diminished purposeful interaction between family members in my home and others in my community? Or the sense that I'm unprotected from random and intentional acts of violence? Or is it a sense that hard work and doing things the right way no longer pay off? With community, family, and political values constantly changing, it is difficult to maintain a hopeful expectation of good. Well, I'm a boomer. Yes, I'm a boomer, and a proud one at that. Because with time, I've learned that I can overcome many things because I've experienced many struggles. However, a younger generation who just may be going out, separating from their families, their parents, who just might be starting their own families, their careers, finding out what their education needs are, they may not know with the same sense of security that I have that they'll get through all of this. And so, as a boomer, I take it very responsibly to help the millennials and, I can't remember the youngest generation now, but the generation of my grandchildren, to let them know that even though they feel like things are really tough right now, that there is still hope, and that they should be encouraged to do their very best and expect things to work out. Now, I don't say that they're going to be easy, but to keep them hopeful. This is one way we can probably decrease the suicide rate among children, adolescents, and young adults, because they just feel like there's nothing for them to live for. But I want you to know there's a God who loves you, has a purpose for your life, and there is much for you to live for. When I grew up, which is a long, long time ago, I believe that in the United States of America, that not everything was perfect or always fair. But this country promoted a belief and hope that most people were working toward the pursuit of happiness and achieving goals of justice, good quality of life, and equity. Now, I wonder if all the work and progress that my generation did before me in human and social justice and labor issues will be swept away, and the world I will leave to my grandchildren will have less humanity and be crueler than the one I've known. What vocation or work should my grandchildren be trained for if technology continues to advance? And then how does my life remain significant right now? How do I keep hope? In my practice, I address the needs of my clients in a holistic way, meaning that we look at the 5 basic or the manifold aspects of human life. The first one is spirituality, and I make that the thumb because that's your power in your thumb. You can't use your hand adequately without your thumb. The second one is your emotional area, how you feel about things. Because we feel long before we learn to do the third thing, and that's think, our thoughts, how we think about things. And then number 4, of course, is our relationships socially. How do we relate to one another in our families, in our communities, on our jobs? And number 5, when you become mature enough, is your sexuality. All 5 of those areas are very important to every human being. And when we feel like we haven't the proper way to express ourselves, the first, or that thumb, becomes very important. And so the holistic approach addresses all 5 of those areas of a person's life. Now, I have what I call a spiritual psychosocial approach, which means that we look at your cultural or spiritual beliefs as well as how you develop your thoughts, your feelings, what's important to you about your relationships. And yes, how will you be as a sexual being? What is important to you? The spiritual psychosocial approach is very effective, and it helps people obtain wholeness. I often say we don't like to talk about mental illness, but your mind is a part of your physical body. It is not separate somewhere out in space. Yet when we start to think about loss of hope and despair, many people have increased anxiety or depression. And it's that anxiety, worry, fear, and depression that causes them to lose hope and move into the area of despair. And so, how can we fully experience and understand all of the aspects of our lives? Integrity versus despair is a psychosocial approach by Erik Erikson. And it's actually the 8th stage of psychosocial development. Psychosocial just means your physical and mental body interacting in your social environment. And his 8th phase of integrity versus despair was usually reserved for late life. Because what it means is that by the time you reach midlife, you would have obtained the skills and the health and met your goals so that you would fully accept yourself and make peace with your life circumstances and even come to terms with your death. Accepting responsibility for your life and being able to achieve satisfaction with self is essential. The inability to do this often results in a feeling of hopelessness and despair. Well, what I've learned from personal life experience and professional practice as a therapist is that our phases of psychosocial development are not static or limited to age ranges. You can lose hope and be in despair at the age of 12 or 16, 22, 36, 41, or 55. Any age you despair of hope signals a crisis in your life. What I've observed is that for myself, as well as many of my clients, the ability to maintain integrity, wholeness, and not give in to despair is at the core of managing depression and anxiety in a crisis. Spirituality, that thumb, allows us to find inner calm and the peace we need to get through whatever life brings us. And no matter how troubled you are, if you understand that you are a spiritual being created for a purpose and that there is help for you, you respect yourself as a person, and you understand that sometimes you're going to need help. That was hard for me to accept because I'm the therapist after all. So I should be able to just continuously help people. But I found that in order to not despair and lose hope, that I had to elevate my thoughts and feelings. Look to the hills from whence come my help. And know that by asking for the wisdom to manage my feelings of anxiety and hopelessness, that there is an answer. And that answer involves having faith. Faith in God is how you initiate hope in your life. Many of you know the scripture well. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. And so sometimes you can't see your way out of a situation, and circumstances seem very overwhelming. But my encouragement to you is to hope in God and have that joyful expectation of a good outcome just by engaging your thumb. You can change your thoughts, your feelings, your social relationships, and your life experiences, where your head is up and not down, where you feel up and not down. Now, it doesn't mean your life is perfect, but we have a perfect God who is able to take you through competently. He has promised he will never leave you or forsake you. And with that encouragement, you gain hope, real hope, where you can look at someone else and say, honestly, I don't feel like my life is perfect, but I still have hope. I'm going to maintain my faith in God. Thank you very much for joining me today. And I hope you will continue to live in wisdom, knowing that there's no need to despair of hope.
OCN, Open Door Communication Network. Our frequency. Watch us on live stream 24 hours. OCN, giving the voice of the Lord.